Okay, so we are finished with our hay making, and we're in the process of fencing our hay bales that we've stacked all through the fields here where the cattle are going to be wintering, where we're going to be bale grazing. So just kind of give an overview of what this all looks like. So first off, we've got a whole bunch of bales up there, and those are not part of the bale grazing strategy. What those are, they are bales that I hayed, and I was up against a tight timeline, and they were actually a little too high in moisture, and they're not going to keep very well. They're like 30% moisture approximately on average. So those bales are going to be fed out first. I've done it before. I mean, you don't want to force the cows to eat too much of them, but and you got to do it at the right time. For my experience is early gestation period after they've rebred. Early winter is probably the best time to do that for our season and our breeding season and everything else. So what we're gonna do is have all those stacked, and probably around the first time the snows come, I'm just gonna unroll those. I gotta cut all the strings off them, all the plastic twine off them, and then I'm gonna just unroll those bales down the hill. And this is an area that's really been pretty low fertility. When we graze this pasture, this is like a 10-acre sort of little pasture subdivision or paddock, and we split it up into a bunch of different sections, and we always get the fewest animal days right here, down here, which is about to change in another couple of years when these bales are gone through, and then down in the corner, just along that fence line to the right of that island. Then we get a lot more productivity up and around there. So we're kind of trying to find our low productivity areas, and so when I unroll bales down in here, I think we're gonna see a big improvement there as the cows feed on them, and then they poop out and trample the rest of this organic matter into the ground. Okay, now this stack, this is the early stack, so we're gonna feed here early in the season, and these are some of the last bales I did. So the hay was already starting to get a little bit gone past, and also the weather, the days were getting shorter and the weather was getting cooler, and I just didn't get them good and dried down. The first 40 of these are not really that good, maybe even 50 or 60, and then they get better back there. But then over here you may notice a change in color, and those are bales that were actually from last year. So a full year and a few months from the time they were made, we're gonna be grazing them. And I had them gridded off and fenced off for last year's bale grazing, and fortunately we ended up with 100 and something bales left over from last year, which is pretty awesome problem to have. So these, they look pretty rough just on the surface. These are sisal twine. Stuff's kind of breaking apart, and you can see, the outer edges. You want to feed these first because the quality's not spectacular necessarily, and the outer few inches is pretty brown and exposed to the weather, not great. But let's get inside of this, and if you pull the interior of these bales out, you will notice we have some nice, relatively green grass. And I'm smelling this. You smell that, son? What does that smell like?
Grass.
Strong. That smells like fresh hay, huh? So it will amaze you. Even out here in northern Maine, we're talking 35 to 40 inches of annual precipitation here, and we get these are out, no cover on them, nothing, outdoors for over a year. And we're still gonna have, once we get probably, 4 to 6 inches in, we're gonna have some good quality feedable hay here. Yeah, that's gonna be good. They're gonna get some nutrition out of that. That's only 3 or 4 inches into the bale. So we're gonna go through those. We're gonna do them, after we get through these high moisture bales, then we're gonna go down over to here. So that's gonna be the tactic for this area in our lower quality hay. So I'm gonna get up high and show you that big, huge grid. That is the best of the best, and that stuff's gonna be fed later on. But just a little example here of how I fence these. I've been changing a little bit every year, but this is kind of where I'm at right now with the fencing system. And I'm stacking them a little different than I did before. And as the herd is getting bigger, we're gonna be feeding, including the calves, we're gonna be probably feeding 60, well, it depends on the market, but a minimum of 50 to 60 animals this winter. And that means you got to give them access to more bales at a time. So I used to have rows of like 4. They'd have access to 4 bales at a time, but the herd's getting too big for that. So here I have 8 bales per row, and I've got this T-post, metal T-post with some 14 gauge wire and plastic insulator there, and a bunch of T-posts down the line here. So I got a line there, I got a line on the end. Going back, there's going to be a line there, and then one on the other end, and then I'm going to go across with temporary wire, smaller diameter wire, electric fence reel, and I used to use poly wire, but now I just use small diameter, high tensile, or sometimes aluminum. Just depends. Aluminum's not very strong though. But anyway, so what we're going to do here is when we start to graze, we're gonna stick the handle of the reel right here, and then we're gonna run the reel all the way across, attach it to the fence on the other end, and they're gonna have access to all these 8 bales at a time. So they're gonna be able to get all around them and feed these, and then when they're done, kind of get this pretty good cleaned up, we just move the fence to behind the next row and do the same thing. And I'm typically running my normal wire to keep them out, and then a back fence in case what happens a lot of times is if you don't space these bales out just right, or the conditions are just right, they can knock a bale down onto the wire and then they just step right over it. And so you got to have a backup, or they're going to be all through this entire stack, which is very, very, very frustrating and hard to remedy once they've learned to do it. So anyway, we do that, and what else was I going to say about that? The wires. Oh yeah, we have poly, our fiberglass posts, because the ground, first early on, we're probably going to be able to stick posts in the ground. We get a little bit of snow, the ground isn't frozen yet. That'll be fine. But the ground freezes sometime early to midwinter, probably for here around Christmas time. Most years the ground will be froze hard, so you can't get a post in, and we stick the posts into the side of the bale and then put the wire on the insulator on the post, and that works pretty good. So, and then you can just adjust the height based on how high you put it on the bale. There'll be times, believe it or not, where the snow will be this is a 4.5 foot high bale. The snow could be 4 feet high, and there's just that, you just see a little hump. There's snow all on top of the bale, and you got to come in with a shovel, and in some cases dig down with a shovel just so that I can get to the bale so they can see it, and then they can start pawing and packing the area down and feeding and getting it more accessible. Here I'm running my wire, and I got it really low right now. This must be about probably 28 to 30 inches height. Reason for that is they're going to come in here and graze this pasture before they start bale grazing, and so I don't want the calves to be able to get access to this area inside the bales, so I don't want them to get trained. Wouldn't hurt anything if they got in there, but I don't want them to get trained to think that they can go under that wire. So I got it low to keep the calves out, but as the winter progresses, as we get more snow and the cows get in here, I'm going to move this up, and I'm going to keep moving all my insulators up. Pretty simple thing to do. You just pop the insulator off, pop it off, slide it up, pop it onto a higher spot. Late in the winter, the insulator and the wire will be up here. Like I said, the snow can be this high as well. Out here, we're going to get a little bit of wind. It's fairly open, so I bet the snow is only going to be 2.5 to 3 feet on the level. unless you get a big storm and it takes a little time for it to pack down. But what happens here is you think, oh, well, the wire is at the snow level, and it is. In a lot of cases, a lot of times in the winter, the wire will be right at the snow level or a couple inches above. However, you got to remember, that cow is sinking down. That's we're talking animals that are between 600-700 for the calves and 1,200, 1,000 to 1,500 for the cows. And they get these small hoofs. They're going to sink right down into the snow quite a bit. So when they get to walking on here, even where they pack down a trail, they're not, that snow that's all packed down where they're sinking to, they're still going to be quite low, a foot or two off the ground. So those wires are effective, and they're not going to step over it or jump it because there's a lot of soft snow on the other side, and it works pretty good in the winter. They don't go very far if they don't have to. So that's our big grid stack down there. I'm going to split that up into a couple of sections, and that I know I won't get. I may not get through 2/3 of that this coming winter, depending on how many animals I sell this fall. We got lots and lots of hay this year. I think I must have well over 700 ground bales on this place right now. Maybe even more than that, actually. That stuff is the early cut, the stuff on the really high quality ground. And by the time the cows get there, they're going to be in the middle to late gestation period, and they will have a higher nutrient requirement. So we can get by with this kind of junky hay, lower quality hay, early in the year, when their nutritional requirements are not that high. They're pretty low. But as we get later in the year, they're going to need to go to that higher quality hay, and we're going to make sure they get plenty of really good top quality stuff to get through. And that, at the same time, it's going to be the coldest part of the winter when they start on that. So it's going to be good to save that for later. But anyway, yeah, it should be interesting. I don't know what else to show you. Just thought I'd give a little intro on what we do and how we do it. And I'm just pounding T-posts and running wires. Actually, the wire, everything's getting so expensive, and I didn't buy another roll of wire. I ran out of one I had a half a mile. I ran out of that finally, and now I'm actually going back and taking wire from the old ears that I just rolled up by hand, and getting them unrolled and untangled, and we're kind of splicing a bunch of those together and using them. Just try to save a little money, everything's getting expensive. So anyway, I think it'll be a good winter. We come out here on snowmobile or snowshoe. My wife does a lot of it in the winter time, and just checking on the cows once or twice a day, and moving wires where necessary. So it's pretty easy, pretty low maintenance, no starting up a tractor or anything to feed animals. It's a pretty nice setup. So yeah. Anyway, till next time, hopefully that was a little bit interesting for folks who feed animals in different ways, and give you a little perspective of what I'm doing here in northern Maine. All right, guys. And by the way, a benefit of this is in about 2 years, this is going to have, in my experience, 3 to 5 times the amount of grass growing on it. And the quality of that grass is going to be substantially higher than it is right now. So we've already over doubled the productivity of this land that we purchased 10 years ago now. But we've doubled the productivity, and I think based on this continual bringing in this hay and feeding and bale grazing, I think we could double it again, actually, to where we're, we could almost be 1 to 2 acres per cow calf pair at some point. But anyway, that's that, and we'll catch you later.